What's up, guys? Are we out of creamer? Really? That was the last one? Uh-oh. Looks like my second cup of coffee is just going to be straight black. Sunday morning, and I got up, and this is the second time in the last couple of weeks. Just woke up after a crazy dream about revival. Let me get this door open. Riley's gonna come outside when we enjoy the video. Probably the cat too. Here we go. Alright. So, man, last night's dream was nutso. And then, so anyways, I had this dream to where, I'm not going to get too specific. Maybe I'll get specific later. I was just out with a couple of our close friends, dear friends, and we were speaking at like this random church in the state I live in Georgia. It's not a church I know, but we were just kind of up in the area, kind of in the northern part of the state, speaking, and my friend just got up to preach, and it was a group of young people, and they were just getting rocked, man. And the power of God came down, and then I got up after him to speak to kind of close it out and really activate the encounter. And the level of God I felt in the dream, I always talk about being otherworldly, but the level of God that I felt in the dream was just, it was on a much bigger level. It's almost like the feeling I've had when I've had some of the crazy encounters where it's been like cosmic or galactic, and like I'm trying to hang in the encounter and spend time there and see everything that heaven has to offer me in that encounter. Shh. Riley's saying hi. She's actually barking at someone. So I'm trying to hang in that encounter, and it's so intense. And so the presence of God in this dream was so intense. And then it was dark outside, but I began to look up, and you could see the weather and the clouds responding to the presence of God that was happening. So the weather is responding to the presence of God, and it was responding to the way that I was articulating my heart and presenting the message of revival to the young people and to the people present. And this isn't a knock, it just got so intense that barely few people could hang with the encounter and what was happening. And the people there at the church actually they weren't resisting God, but they just did not know what to do. So they just kind of started shutting stuff down. They're like, okay, we're done, we're going to go home now. And it's like they weren't able to respond to the deep thing, but it didn't faze me because they weren't rejecting it. It was just this new thing that was so deep, so awesome, they didn't know how to enter into it. And that actually challenges me, so when this stuff does begin to break out and start to happen, I want to be able to navigate people to enter into the magnitude and the enormity of what God's doing in the present moment. 2017, the year of flight. So this is on, I don't know if it was I don't know if it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, but I had another dream to where, I don't know, I was hanging out with some, like the CFAN guys, like Daniel Kalenda, Eric Gilmore, Brian Gearin, and I should have written this dream down right after I had it, because now it's a little fuzzy. But I just remember just hanging out with those guys, and my friend Daniel, I guess I'm not like, I don't want to mislead people. I know him, but we're not like best friends. I know Eric a little bit and Brian a little bit. But he was talking to me, like just having a conversation, and the amount of God that was coming or responding to the words coming from him was so overwhelming. I had to put my head down. We're kind of like think about like a bar top thing. I just had to put my head down and weep based on the magnitude of presence that was surrounding his voice and what was coming out. And then in the next moment, we were like in this really old school church. Not like a cathedral, but like an old school church, maybe built in like the 50s or something. It had like these weird balconies, like the real steep balcony, and then you could kind of overlook. And I was sitting in that church, and it had like orange fabric. And during my time at the Brownsville Revival School of Ministry, the big sanctuary where the students would always meet was called the Orange. And we were all about fire, we were all about fuego and seeing God move back then. God moved powerfully, powerfully, powerfully many times in that building. And it was ironic that this crazy church I found myself in had orange fabric. And I just thought that spoke of the legacy of revival. And I was in there just weeping, and Eric was talking to me at that point, and just such rich presence of God that I could tell that people were aware of the presence of God. And so that was my two most recent dreams. I still don't have language to describe how I felt when I woke up, because it was something beyond what I've been presently experiencing. It was a presence of God in a manner that it's really hard to describe. I don't really have language yet, but I know a movement's coming. Years ago, Dr. Gladstone said it's not about whether or not the Spirit of God's coming. The Spirit of God's coming. The movement is coming. The thing is that are we going to be able to pray ourselves into it? So what God is designing to happen is going to happen. It reminds me of when Bill and Benny Johnson first went to Bethel Church in Redding. They shared their hearts on the first day, and they essentially said only one person kind of got it. Only one person really responded to the Spirit of God and what was happening. But after they left, they went home and they were like, yes, it's here. That one person's response they cherished as the cloud the size of a man's hand. And then, you know, over 20 years later, the revival's going strong. It's really a movement. Something that was able to last and transcend and go beyond the generations. And I recently just rewatched the Father's Day outpouring at Brownsville, and stop eating grass, really. Stop eating grass. And rather than being a grass muncher. And if you compare the day that the Spirit broke out at Brownsville to most services that we have nowadays, you wouldn't think anything of it. It doesn't seem that intense. Yeah, there's people who are hungry, kind of going for it. But it doesn't seem anything extraordinary. But they were able to see in the moment what was happening, what God was doing, and they captured that and stewarded it. And you have one of the biggest revivals in history with over 2 million people coming, and many, many, many more getting saved, changing the expression of worship, and everything that is in the legacy of Brownsville. So there's traction, there's movement, and so these dreams are kind of like reminding me of these ignition points in history when people would get together and revival would begin to break out. And so that was my third. The one last night was my third in a series of dreams. The other one I think happened last year or the year before. Oh man, it could have been even several years by now. I think I've got this one written down. I was in a building. I think Brian Guerin was present in this one too, but I was in a building, and it felt like it was an office building downtown or something. Or it may have been there, I don't know. But I think it was one of those same guys who just really carried the presence. We were in this room, and I was having a conversation with someone, and what was inside of my heart and what was inside of their heart just began to collide. It wasn't a service or anything like that, but there was a group of believers gathered together for something. I don't know what everything represents. And I began to manifest it. My heart began to just express, and the manifestation of God went through me, and I began to like shake, you know. If you stand next to a train track and the train is going right in front of you with 4 or 5 engines, the ground's going to vibrate, you're going to shake. Well, imagine standing next to the engine that fires the universe. If you're standing next to God's throne, who knows what kind of physical response you'll have. And if His throne draws near, the Merkabah, the chariot, the mobile throne draws near to you, then who knows how the body is going to respond. And the presence of God just began to explode in that place. And I could hear the conversations of others change as almost like the ground zero of a blast. That presence we experienced in that conversation sent shockwaves. And then like I could tell it like went through the rest of the people in the building. went out of the building, began to hit the city, and it encircled the globe. And so I think that dream had to do with a major, you know, revival that kind of culminates everything. It culminates with the return of Jesus. It's like this major revival outpouring. I hate to say the word end time, because end time in Scripture really means that the age to come. That's where a lot of confusions come in. But this is the age where heaven is invading earth. Jesus says the kingdom has come. So when I say revival, I'm talking about a revival of the cosmic plan of God, which is family, reviving all of creation to the family of God. So then sons and daughters awaken to their true identity, becoming mothers and fathers and transforming the generations. One of the things I've been saying a lot recently is church is a family that creates community, that transforms culture. And so last night I woke up from the dream where the weather was responding. I opened my eyes, I felt like my room was spinning and there was like flashing lights happening outside. I looked outside the window, there was nothing, but there was these flashing lights happening and stuff like that. And then I went to the bathroom, and the light coming in the bathroom was flashing. So it's like the same thing that was happening in my dream was happening in the natural. There was flashing of lights. Weather itself was responding. Creation was responding to what was happening, what was being downloaded in my spirit. And this is coming after a season of a couple of years where we've seen the wind of God begin to blow. As soon as I say that, the top of the trees start. Are they dancing up there? A little bit. That's crazy, man. I promise you, I have not had the wind blow the entire time I've been out here. You've been watching the video, and now the trees are responding to it. And the reason I even ended up making this video is because I was telling Alicia, hey, I had another crazy dream. We were sitting in our office, and as I began talking, a bird came and landed right on our front porch. And I'm not trying to look into everything and over-spiritualize stuff, but that childlike faith can capture the moments that are special, that are magical, that are heavenly, that we can miss in the day-to-day. And so interacting with creation and how birds and things respond. You know, birds responding to stuff isn't just for Snow White, right? There's an encounter I had one time with my friend Scott Thompson, who I get to see next week. But we're late at night at his house talking about the eyes of fire Jesus. There's a time where Jesus is your buddy, but there's also a time when Jesus is eyes of fire. He's King, He's Lord, and that's how you relate and respond to Him. And Scott was like, you know, we always talk about heaven coming to earth, and he was like, well, if we look at it the opposite way, what if earth gets sucked into heaven? And as he said that, this amazing like fear of the presence of God hit us. We went back into our chairs, and we were like, whoa, and we looked over at each other. There's just been times like that I've had, like where it's so strong you don't even need to really communicate. And we were just kind of pinned back on his porch in these chairs. Wow, the wind's moving again. Riley's like, whoa, something's happening. And we're like, man. And then, like, this is late at night, like 10 o'clock at night, and there's this tree in his front yard. Oh, it's picking up, dude. Check this out. Shagabaga, Celia Kundalabakate. And all these birds begin to respond, like, late at night. They begin, like, they take flight, right? They begin to fly into the air, and they start, like, chirping. I mean, hundreds of birds out of this tree. Maybe 50, but we'll go with 100. Just fly up, and then like it was just crazy. At the exact moment we felt that heavy majesty of glory, creation begins to respond. Riley, stay in our yard. And now there's birds singing. You hear the birds? Wow. Creation begins to respond, and then like a quarter mile down the street, there's this pond. And all of a sudden we hear all these crazy geese going, caw, caw, caw. So it was this reverberal effect where all the nature that was just like peacefully sleeping in his neighborhood began to respond to the encounter that we were having on his front porch. And there's I think it's Wales, I don't know if it was Wales or Ireland, somewhere in the Celtic nation, the Holy Spirit is often referred to as the wild goose. And that's just crazy because man, the majesty of God. And it's amazing how you can come out of an encounter, like it's been raining a lot here in Georgia, but you come out of an encounter and the trees themselves just look greener. Even though the day is a little bit overcast, you can see the majesty and glory. And ever since I had that vision where I talked about going into a heavenly place and being out on the veranda, It's like you can activate your faith sensory perception and see the life of God in cosmos, in the creation, His divinely intended order. And in seeing that, you can activate that in others through speech, the preaching of the gospel, through teaching, through talking about the depths of God, through the laying on of hands, seeing people healed by realigning that cosmic structure that all of us are made up of, because we're all made in the image of God. Remember, cosmos means divinely intended order. And if His order is family, then anything that breaks apart family is disorder or chaos. So He's reviving everyone to the family. It's going to be crazy, supernatural, awesome. The blanket of majesty and glory is covering the earth and is increasing. I mean, everything that He has to offer is already available to us, already freely given to us, but at the same time, it's infinitely and exponentially increasing. So all of this was to help me process. You know, I do this, and you guys watch the videos, and you're awesome. Revival. And I'm just finishing the rewrite of my first book, The Call for Revivalist, and revival. And I'm talking about revival on much different magnitude. All the other revivals that have gone before us have set the stage for what we're being given, honestly, in our generation. The hard work has been done, but we can choose to whether or not we carry the torch and see this amazing thing happen in our generation. It just keeps happening. As much as I think I disqualify myself, or maybe I missed out, or maybe I gotta pray more, fast more, all those things are part of our daily walk, but the movement is coming and is here. And it's rising in the earth. And these dreams are just kind of accelerating towards something. So Father, I say that we're in God. God, we see the waves, we see the swells. I know that my dreams are just kind of looking out to what's coming. And I know that people watching are probably having their own encounters, like wave after wave, that's increasing. Like my 3 dreams have increased the level of magnitude. The encounters, the elements that are responding seem to increase in magnitude. And something is happening. I know you're up to something, God. So maybe not just be observant. The sons of Issachar understood the times and what they should do. Let us not stop with just understanding the times and recognizing that you're doing something in our generation, but let us take action and move and behave according to the place where we found that we belong, God. Let us paddle out and ride the wave of what you're doing in our generation. So I pray for you, if you're watching this, that you'll begin to have these dreams and encounters like I've been having. May my encounters be an invitation into your own encounter. So let's go deep, let's go wide, let's go for it, let's go for the glory. Let's go for the unknown. Let's go past the barrier of all that we believe is possible, past the barrier of the natural, to live actual supernatural lifestyles as human beings, sons and daughters of God. All right, go for it.